Hello guys and welcome back to Game Development Tutorials. So last time what we did, um, we finished the collision, so now that it actually stops instead of jitters out. Um, and we will add some knockback to our spike this time. And as you notice, the spike is looking a little weird. It's appearing in front of our ground. So we will change that for one. So this is a pretty simple fix. All we have to do is select our spike and set the ordering layer to -1. And there we go. Now I'll go to overrides and press apply all. And there we go. Now it is behind. Okay, so right now, if we run it into our spike, we jitter in it. So we do not want that. So we will just get knocked back. Let's name it first, knockback. So, let's do it. So, to do this, I think I will go into my player controller script. So double click that to open it up in Visual Studio. Okay, and it's loading. And here we go. So we will do this in the take damage method. But before we do that, we actually have to go into our player movement script. And at the top, where we have our variables, I want to add a new variable. I want a private bool called facing right. Okay, there we go. So now, what I'll say is I'll make our void start method. So I'll just write void start. Autocorrect help. It should be pretty quick. So now, what I'll say is facing right is equal to true. Because if we do not set it immediately in the start method, it will default to false. But we don't want that, so we're setting it to true. And then, we're saying, in this check controls, right there, so right above the can move left, or the can't move left, I will set facing right is equal to false. And then, like how I did in this A key or left arrow, I'll do the same thing with the right arrow. So, above the if statement, I'll say facing right is equal to true. And there we go. There's one more thing that I have to do inside the script. It's pretty quick. So we'll go to the top of our variables, and we have to change this facing right bool to a public bool, so we can actually reference it for other scripts. But we still do not want to show it in the inspector, so we're not tempted to check the box. So this is an easy solution. Just like how I have this header and this space, I'll make these brackets, and I'll write hide in inspector. So now it will not show up in the inspector, even though it is still a public bool. Okay, so now in our player controller, we can actually reference this variable. So to do that, I'll go to the top, and I'll add a private player movement reference, and I'll call this movement. Then in our start method, I want to set the movement variable equal to something. And what I want to set it equal to is this movement is equal to, then get component on this object, and the component that I want to get is the player movement script. And now I'll finish that line off. And now I can get the facing right variable from this movement. So I want one more variable. I want a private rigid body 2D called RB. I want to apply force to the rigid body that will launch the player backwards from the spike. So, just like how I set the player movement to something, I will set the RB is equal to get component rigid body 2D. And there we go. So now, in the take damage method, right after we subtract current health minus equals time delta time we want to detect if if the player is facing a certain way, and if it is, we will launch it the opposite way. So I'll say if facing, we have to say if movement dot facing right is equal to true, and in there I want to say RB dot velocity, so the rigid body velocity is equal to vector 2 dot left multiplied by some value. I think I'm going to set that value to something like maybe 5,000. Then I'll multiply that by time dot delta time. Okay, so now that is for our right facing player. Now I'll just copy this if statement, and I'll say else, then paste it. If statement says this is else if movement dot facing right is equal to false, then I want to launch the other way, so I'll be vector 2 dot right. And there we go. Let's go back into Unity for some testing. Okay, let's let that compile. Okay, and here we go. There should not be any variables that I have to set. So let's just press play and see what happens. So I'll hit the spike, and I somewhat get launched backwards. So that is because one, let's just apply more force. Set that to 10,000. And we also want to disable the player movement script for just a little bit while the player is being launched back. So I will change this void into an I enumerator. And what that lets us do is it lets us wait a certain amount of time before doing something else. So right after we take damage, and right before we get launched back, I want to say movement dot enabled is equal to false. Then now what I can write, since this is an I enumerator, I can write yield return new, wait for seconds, and I'll say about maybe 0.5 seconds, and then I can re-enable the movement. I'll say movement.enabled is equal to true. Okay, we still have to fix one issue, that the player will no longer take damage, and that's because of how we are calling this method when it collides with the spike. So we cannot call an I enumerator normally. We have to say start coroutine, take damage, and in parentheses 1, just like that. So it's a bit different, but it's how it works. So now I will test. Okay, just press play. And I get launched back. Okay. So the force, something a lot less. Maybe 750. Okay, I'll try that. You can just tweak these values until you're happy with the knockback. And I also want to launch a player up. So then what I'll say is I want to say rb.velocity is equal to vector 2 dot up multiplied by 500. I think I'll also say 750 multiplied by time dot delta time. Then I'll copy that and paste that in the if facing right is equal to false. Okay, now that should be our knockback. Now we can test if we just press play and run into our spike. So as you can probably tell, he actually did not get launched back. So I will delete that RB velocity because you can only apply a velocity at one time for some reason. So instead of saying this, so I'll just comment that out, is I'll say rb.add force, and this is another way to move. Then say new vector 3 because it only takes in a vector 3. It does not take in 3 floats. Then in there, for the x, I want to be launched back set by 750 multiplied by time dot delta time. Then for the height, I'll set that to 750 multiplied by time dot delta time, and I do not want to be moved on the z-axis, so I'll say 0. Then copy that, paste that right underneath. I'll comment this code out, and instead of 750 for the x value, I'll set it to negative 750. And now we can try that. And now it should be launched back and up. Okay, yeah, so we have to apply a lot more force. So I'll just add maybe 2 extra zeros to both of these values. Okay. We can keep testing this until we are happy with these values. Well, I think that's a bit much. I'll just remove 1 0. I'll set the height to 50,000. Ignore that sound. I'll just set the height to 5,000. Okay, and there we go. We can keep messing around with these, and actually the smarter decision would probably be to not hard code these into the code, but to actually make these free values by making them an actual variable. So we can go to our top in our variables, and I'll say public float knockback mt for amount. Say public float knockback y amount. Then in here, for the facing right is equal to true. Then we'll say new vector 3 negative knockback amount multiplied by time dot delta time. And instead of 5,000, we'll say knockback x amount. And we'll do the same thing with the facing right is equal to false. Set that to positive knockback amount. Then for the y, set that to knockback y amount. Okay, and let's try that. We set the value to 0. Okay, here we go. Knockback y amount 10,000. For knockback y amount 750,000. There we go. It's a tiny little knockback. So I will just multiply this by 2. And an easy way of doing this is to just select the value that you want to change and put the time sign or the holding shift while pressing 8 and multiply it by 2. And I'll do that for both of those values. There we go. Okay, great. And it also looks like the player is taking 2 damage instead of 1. Yeah, now it has 1 health. So let's see. I think I might actually want to put this current health. So I will select it, press Control X. Then, right before we knock back, I will just paste it right back in there with Control V. And if you do not know, the shortcut for Control X is to cut. So that just allows you to delete the word, and then you can paste it back in. Okay, go back into Unity. I might also want to do this. Yeah, okay. So we actually want to do this right here. So right after it knocks us back. And also, right after we collide once, I'll say return, so it cannot call that method again. Or, an easier fix is that we can just take 0.5 health away, because 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, and if it takes 2 health per hit, then it should take 3 hits to die. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. So that was the easy fix, and that is also the end of this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Because next time we will be doing something much more exciting. We will be adding player shooting. We will also be adding some enemies, if we have time, to follow the player around. Okay, so that is it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.